Okay, here we are. This is lesson 3 of how to draw a Tesla Model S. And as you can see, we made uh, quite a bit of progress on the underside of the car, on the shadow underneath there, and some progress on the wheels, some on the radiator inlet, and now we're going back to the shadow underneath the car. We're going to increase that, and I'm doing the darkest areas of the car. Now, this is not as dark as they will be when I'm done with them, but this gives you an idea of how I start out. I always try to do the darkest parts first. That gives me an idea of how or where they're going to be placed, and then we see where those are relative to the reflections and highlights and stuff, and that makes it easier for me to figure out how I can do the most dramatic drawing and the best drawing. At the same time that I want my drawing to look like the photograph that I'm using, which is why I chose the photograph, of course, I also want to make sure that I do it at least as well as that. And that can mean that I like to try to do it better than the photograph, or I like to emphasize different things than what are necessarily in the photograph. And very often that's making the darkest parts darker because the photograph is in color. I don't have use of color, I just have a black pen. So I have to do something to make it more dramatic and make it look so people take a look at it and say, wow, that really looks great. And in my case, what that is using the whole spectrum from white to dark black. And in the middle, we have grays of varying degrees. And you can see here, this is the shadow underneath the car is not very even right now. It'll be a lot more even than that when we go back to it. But I always have to put down a layer, like I say, which I call a primer coat, and that uh, that needs to be done 2 or 3 layers deep, and then it starts to get even. If I put in just one layer, it's always got a little blotchiness and unevenness. So uh, it's like trying to paint a wall and doing only one coat. It doesn't usually work out because some areas are light and some are dark, and you can see the paper or the backing or whatever right through them. So that's the same thing with this ink. If I only do one layer, then it's going to look really shabby. So it's a it's a balancing act. You're doing this all the time. You're deciding what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So that's where I am right now. I'm doing some more detailing on the wheel too, because this is a right front that's facing toward us, um, and that's the closest wheel that we have to us. I'm going to do a lot of detail in there, so I'm just marking out the areas right now, but it's again going to have a lot more detail put in it than what I'm putting in at the moment. But it's a start. It's just to let me know where things are, and that'll just help me get all the details when we get back to trying to do the actual detail part of the drawing. But for right now, I'm just roughing everything in and getting to the point that we can see one against the other, one value against the other, one part of the car against the other, and how much the back, the areas that are farthest away from you, how those will be impacted by the relative proximity to the viewer. In other words, we're going to have a lot more detail in the front than we do in the back. So are we going to make it darker in the back? Are we going to make it lighter to kind of obscure that? Or what are we going to do? So that's all going to be decided when we get a little bit farther down the road. But for right now, I'm just trying to put in some details so that we have a start at the actual drawing itself. Now you see it's kind of starting to look like a car now. It was just a bunch of dots and everything, but now you're starting to be able to see the car coming out of the paper. So that's the part that I really like to do first is to get to the point that it's beginning to look like an automobile. And when we do that, then it always makes me feel better about it too, so I work harder on it. And this is a really pretty car. I didn't see one out today. I was out several times, but I didn't see one of these. But the 2 days previous, Like I said, I saw 4 of them, and I don't know if that's unusual or not, but now that I'm drawing it, of course, I noticed them. But still, they're really, really a pretty car. And they have a lot of different design elements on them that make them look really cool, especially from the back. They look very wide and very low, very trick-looking car. From the front, it looks kind of, not that different than a lot of other cars, but from the back, they're pretty spectacular. And when you get up behind one, it is really interesting to see. The fact that when they cruise through a parking lot too, they're really at low speed. They're virtually silent. All you hear is the sound of the tires, and that's kind of interesting too. But when they accelerate, there is some noise from the outside anyway, and it's just. I'm gonna have to take a drive in one of these just to see what it feels like and sounds like inside. But personally, I think electric cars make a lot of sense. I do like them. I think it's a really good idea. And for a lot of people, I think it's an economical idea. I mean, not to buy $100,000 car to save on gasoline, but I mean, for a lot of people to buy an electric car that they can commute in, I think is a good idea. It just happens that this is so new and so trick that a lot of people are going to buy it because it's different, and it's something that people can say, "Whoa, look at what we're doing for the environment," which is fine. I mean, I have no reason to complain about that. I'm just saying it is kind of. I wonder if everybody is really all that concerned about the environment, or it's more just to show that they can afford to buy a car like this, which is fine too. I have nothing against that either, but. This is kind of like the forefront, I think, of electric cars, and we're going to see a lot more affordable electric cars, especially when we can get the battery technology to come around a little bit better. But it takes cars like this before we can do that too. Anyway, we're running out of time. I hope you come back tomorrow. We are starting to make it look like a car, but make a lot of progress tomorrow. Thank you very much. See you then. Bye.